Well, firstly is that economic growth and population growth come from two different sources. When you look at population growth, for example, you go to the households and you talk to them and you make estimates coming out of those people who are entering and leaving South Africa from time to time. Whereas when you look at the economic growth, you're looking at the way the processes in the economy and the behavior of the economy. So those are two different sources, and because they are two different sources, it would be very difficult to want to compare them. But however, we can see that the population keeps on growing. We're sitting at 56.5%, 56.5 million people as we're talking now in terms of South Africa in relation to the 2017 media estimates. But if you look at the last quarter of 2016, we observed a negative growth. And again, if you look at the 2017 first quarter, we observed a negative growth, which we didn't observe in the population. And while in the last two quarters we have observed positive growth, including this one of 2%, we don't observe similar behaviors in the population. So as growth rates, you won't compare them because those are two different sources. However, one thing that you can say is the population is growing, the economy behaves in a way that all sorts of economic mechanizations occur in the country.
I mean, we've seen a 2% growth. Does that is our economy turning the corner? Is it? Are we out of this recession now? And do you see a pickup?
Of course, we have observed growth in the last quarter of 2.5% and revised now sitting at 2.8%, because when we get new information in this quarter, we actually revised the previous quarter. As revised, it's at 2.8 now. Now this one is 2%. But our job is not to predict what will happen in the future, it's to measure what has happened. So we measure as far as where we are now. But one thing we can say is that we had observed 2 quarters of negative growth coming out of the fourth quarter of 2016 and the first quarter of 2017, and now we have observed in a row 2 quarters that are showing positive growth.
Can you give us a sense as to how is the real GDP growth? How is that going? What indications do you have?
Well, the first thing is you should understand that when we look at real GDP, we actually kind of run on seasonal issues. So we look at that over time, and in time we have observed, as I've indicated, spikes and going down in last quarter of 2016. And of course, now we seem to be going to a growth of 2% as of this quarter now, and that was about 2.5 as revised 2.8. Yeah.
So these numbers that we are hearing today, how does that translate to the ordinary? What does it say for the man in the street? These figures that the 2% and the 2.8, what does it mean?
It's quite interesting. The job of statisticians in official is to measure impartially. Now, we don't have taste buds. We cannot go and say this is how the man in the street should feel, because we don't have those taste buds ourselves. Our job is to measure, and once we have presented the number, for those who are responsible for planning in the policy space, they must take the number and go and use it and apply it in planning, monitoring and evaluation. For those that are in business, they must actually take the number and see what it means for them. And for the common man and woman in the street, they must absorb the number as it comes. Now, for us to start prescribing how these numbers mean for the common man and woman in the street as well as for policymakers, then we would venture into some terrain and lose our independence. Our job is to provide the number with such impartiality.
And then can I just coming back to today's numbers, it seems as though more growth is in the primary sector. That seems to be the focus. Is that the trend that you can pick up moving forward as well?
Well, if you look at agriculture, for example, we have observed a 44.2% growth. That 44.2% growth, it's more like a bumper harvest than we have seen in horticulture and field crops, particularly in maize on the side of field crops. And of course, if you look at other areas like citrus, fruits and vegetables, we have seen such a growth. But agriculture is actually seasonal. But that's what we observed this time. The one other thing is we should remember that agriculture is coming from a low base of growth, so that growth actually was highly noted. But generally, the primary sector has recorded 14.9%, while the secondary sector has recorded about 2.1%, and 0.3% was the tertiary sector. So certainly the primary sector has actually recorded the highest growth.
Okay, I think we're done. Thank you so much.